Hi, my name is Dave Hilowitz. A lot of times in these videos, you'll see me showing off a sample or doing some composing as part of like a tutorial or something. And I'll be coming up with something and you won't see my fingers. You won't see what I'm doing with my hands. Most of the time, I'm actually using a grid controller like this one. So here's the deal with that. That began in 2009. I saw a video online of this guy, Brian Crabtree, doing a really beautiful performance. It was really well shot. It was really nice music, using something called the Monome, which was a device that he had invented. And it's like a standard grid controller. If you've ever seen a Launchpad, you know what it looks like. At the time, they were back ordered, and as soon as they came back into stock, I bought one. A year or two later, the Launchpad came out, and it looked to me to be pretty much the same thing at like a fraction of the cost. So I bought one of those, and when it arrived, I was like, okay, this is cool. It was like very tightly integrated with Ableton Live, which is software that I actually use. But the aspect of Ableton Live that it was built for was like launching clips. I'm primarily like a MIDI-based composer. I work with a piano roll. Launching clips is not the aspect of Ableton that I use the most. So my goal was to be able to trigger MIDI notes with the Launchpad and essentially like play up and down a scale or even chromatic. So I wrote a piece of software called Grid Instrument that let me play the Launchpad like a standard MIDI controller. And the setup for me is great. It's endlessly configurable. It's way easier to play than the piano. You can span like 5 octaves with just a single hand. Really a very workable solution for me. Over the course of testing my software, I actually had to buy every single Launchpad that ever existed. The Mini, the original, the Pro. And over the course of that time, the original, the Mark II version of the original, has always been my favorite. It feels great, and the dimensions just like perfectly fit my hands. That being said, I've always had 2 problems with it. One of them was that it needed the use of my software, and as proud as I am of the software, it'd be nicer not to have a third-party app in the mix, even if I wrote it. The second is that the original Launchpad didn't have velocity sensitivity. So anyway, here we are now in 2020, and Novation has released a brand new slate of Launchpads, a new Launchpad Mini, a new Launchpad X, and a new Launchpad Pro. I now have my hands on a new Mini and a new Launchpad X, and it seems, at least with the Launchpad X, like they've basically answered all my prayers. It has velocity sensitivity, and it has built-in scale mode, so I can't wait to check this thing out. Okay, so let's take a look at these. This is the old Launchpad, and this is the new Launchpad. It's a little bit sleeker. It's a little bit nicer looking. As you can see, these side buttons are less prominent, and they're also square. Other than that, they're pretty similar looking. I think they both look pretty good. As you'll see once I plug this in though, there's a huge difference between these two, and that is this one features RGB pads. Like each one of these pads can be lit up in pretty much any color, whereas this one is kind of like only orange and brown and yellow. So yeah, let's plug this in. I'm going to do something that I basically never do, and that is I'm going to use on-camera audio. It's just too much of a hassle to set up my external mic. And there's that beautiful RGB color. Okay, so right off the bat, this thing puts itself in what's called keys mode, which is not the same thing as scales mode. It is essentially this is like a piano keyboard. Like this is C, this is C sharp, this is D, these are the black keys, these are the white keys. We might have to launch Ableton to see. Get our piano patch going. So that's pretty cool. It's definitely not scale mode. I think I'm going to launch Grid Instrument and yeah, see what happens. And right off the bat, Grid Instrument seems to have recognized it. Okay, let's give this thing a shot. Well, it seems to work really well. So the Launchpad Mini, in addition to like obviously its Ableton Live functionality, comes with a few canned modes. There's the drum mode, there's the keys mode, and then there's this user mode. One of the big new features of the new Launchpads is that you can configure the user mode using a new app. And what you can do is you can make a custom mode that essentially allows you to lay out buttons. Like I could take this and make a chromatic keyboard here, and then maybe I want a drum grid up here. And essentially you're customizing the way that that space is being used. So maybe you want like a fader that's just going to control a volume level in your software. No, I just knocked out something else. Or you want to send a program change or some MIDI thing. You can configure all of that here, and then you click this button, send to Launchpad, and here. It looks just like what I have up there on the screen. And essentially you can control the layout of your buttons, or you could just make a pretty picture. Okay, moment of truth. And there you have it. What a great use of time. Okay, this thing's really cool, but I have to stop myself, otherwise I'll just keep playing with it forever. Let's check out the Launchpad X. So I've just been playing with the Launchpad X, and I can confirm it is amazing. The pads feel great. The velocity sensitivity is just perfect. So I couldn't be happier. It's the first grid control I've ever used where I could actually play piano samples with any real nuance. So yeah, really happy with it. Okay, it's time to make some music with this thing. In situations like this where I'm not sure how to start a track, I'll usually record a basic rhythm just to provide a pace for the composition. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll probably want to clean up the velocities a bit later. Okay, now I'm just going to play some whole notes. I'm intentionally only playing 2 out of the 3 notes of each of these chords. I want to keep things a little ambiguous sounding. Maybe we could add another like harmonic element or something. Okay, I have this melody in my head. I think I can make it fit. Okay, not bad for a few minutes of work. I can turn it into a library track, maybe. So I've had a couple of hours to play with these, and yeah, I have to say I'm really happy with both of these. They're both kind of like different. They have different use cases. The Mini is tiny, it's super portable. For me, this is more for like controlling pads or synths or something like that. It's certainly an upgrade over the old Mini, which only had a few colors. This one's like fully RGB, it's really beautiful. Okay, so now let's talk about the Launchpad X. This thing is just amazing. Basically any complaint that I had with the old Launchpad, like it didn't have velocity sensitivity, it didn't have scale mode, they've basically answered all of my prayers with this thing. If you write music that relies on different velocities, like if you write piano music or stuff like that, I highly recommend getting the Launchpad X. The velocity sensitivity feels really natural, just really fun and inspiring. Even though it has built-in scale mode, and that basically means that people aren't going to need to buy my app anymore, I couldn't be happier with that. I mean, it's obviously, this is the kind of stuff that should really be in the firmware anyway. So yeah, it's amazing. I couldn't recommend it more. I think that's it. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit like and subscribe. Yeah, see you next time.